As the saying always go in the building, when one of you all succeed, the community will also reap the benefit. And that is the kind of conversation that has been going on here this evening. This is Gaza Media, and my name is Ernest Kumba, reporting for Community News, Maryland.
Today, to celebrate one of us, Ambassador Dr. John Nkengasong, who has risen to the apex of his professional career on merit. He is a technocrat in virology. He is a square peg in a square hole. He sailed through his Senate confirmation with flying colors, which is indicative of the fact that he does not only possess cognitive intelligence that has enabled him to excel in his education and subsequently in his professional career as a virologist, he also possesses commendable emotional, social, and adversity intelligences that have prepared him to uphold professional ethics, embrace and maintain collegial and collegiality and collaboration in the workplace, as well as deal with adversities effectively when they do crop up. A round of applause to his better half, Mrs. Nkengasong, a formidable counselor behind and beside her husband. It cannot be well with us at work when it is not well at home. Thank you, madam. As a U.S. Global AIDS Coordinator, Ambassador Dr. Nkengasong leads and oversees the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, historically the largest commitment by any nation to find a cure for a single disease and save lives. Prior to occupying the current post, he was the director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, located in Addis Ababa. Ambassador Dr. Nkengasong is a recipient of many prestigious awards and recognitions, including the most recent German award for global health known as Virtual Prize, which was endowed with 500,000 euros. This is one of the most highly regarded awards in global public health that is closely compared to a Nobel Prize. The award ceremony that took place in Berlin last October was attended by the mayor of Berlin, the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom, and many foreign dignitaries. Dear Ambassador Dr. Nkengasong, LECDA USA is organizing this reception to celebrate your exceptional and consequential academic and professional achievements, as well as to recognize your service to LECDA USA as the Vice CEO and Director of Projects from 2004 to 2007, under the tenure of Professor Valentine Zengu, sitting across me. You both work in close collaboration to move the LEBLM development agenda forward. The introduction of the milk distribution to babies born to HIV-positive mothers for many years was one of the 2 programs in the entire Cameroon that helped to stop the HIV transmission from infected mothers to their babies. In fact, you both have continued to be shining models for successive LECDA boards thanks to the rock-solid foundation you put in place during your tenure. Mr. Ambassador, there is one popular adage which says, and going back to what His Royal Majesty said earlier, when your kinsman climbs a plum tree, you are sure to eat the black ones. That adage cannot be overemphasized in this context. LECDA USA hopes to draw leverage from your institutional knowledge and social capital to seek funding for some of our pressing development projects in the community health sector. We have a spectrum of health entrepreneurs represented in this hall. And some of the issues that we have highlighted, among many others, here, and I will be citing some of them that LECDA USA has been working on, but in spite of us limping financially. So we have one of them is offering LEBLM people healthcare insurance through Catholic hospitals at affordable cost. LECDA is exploring this option with Mary Health of Africa. We want to accompany our people in shifting the paradigm of sick care to actual health care, where people don't only show up in the hospital when they are sick, but they go to hospital for prevention.
Coretta King, the wife of late Martin Luther King, said this about community, and I'll quote, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members." End of quote. So thank you, LECDA. Thank you, community, for the compassion that you have shown to myself, my family, since we arrived Washington about 8 months ago. Today, you've heard from the CEO and from Chief Fomeche that what this job entails. I was nominated actually by the President and confirmed by Senate to lead the largest U.S. humanitarian health program in the history of the United States, which is called the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, abbreviated PEPFAR. I start there because you've mentioned this severally, and today, as I speak, that program is celebrating its 20th anniversary. And I am the FIT coordinator, the FIT ambassador. You may ask, what has that program done for the continent of Africa? That program has saved 25 million lives, prevented 5.5 million children from being born of HIV/AIDS, and strengthened all kinds of health systems on the continent of Africa. It has disbursed $110 billion to the continent of Africa. So it's worthwhile celebrating that anniversary today. If you all remember 20 years ago, before this program started, the continent of Africa was at the verge of being eliminated by the disease called HIV/AIDS. At least everybody in this room knows somebody who knows somebody who had died of HIV/AIDS during our time. When I took office, my first order of business was to go to Dallas and meet with President Bush, President W. Bush, as I affectionately call him, W, because he is the one who, at the State of the Union address 20 years ago, took the courage to announce that the United States government will support the fight against HIV/AIDS in Africa by contributing $15 billion. Billion, not million dollars. And he kept to the promise. When I met him, he greeted me with laurel and sat me down on the same chair he was sitting, looked at me and said, "Mr. Ambassador, welcome. Where are you originally from? How many children do you have?" And he went on and on. We chatted. And in the middle of the conversation, I asked him, I said, "Mr. President, why did you commit yourself to such a program at that time, 20 years ago?" And he said, first, that was perhaps the most interesting moment in the conversation. He sat back, pulled himself back, and said, "Mr. Ambassador, I believe in God. And to whom much is given, much is expected." And he said, God has blessed this country, America, and he thought at that time, 20 years ago, that America could do something to solve it, to treat a disease that was threatening the whole continent. Then he told me that when he was president, Condoleezza Rice came to him and said, "Mr. President, do you know that a whole continent is out there at the edge of being eliminated by a disease called HIV/AIDS?" Then he laughed. He said, "Mr. Ambassador, you know, when you are president, everybody comes to you and magnify the problem." Then he said, "I told Condoleezza Rice to bring the proof, the evidence that this is the case." So Condoleezza Rice pulled Anthony Fauci, Tommy Thompson at that time, and a large group of Congress members to go to Africa to review the situation and come back and advise the president. It is during that period that I met in the field. I was in Cote d'Ivoire, that I met with Dr. Fauci. And we since became close. And it's amazing that before he retired, or the day of his retirement, in Congress, I was the one reading his citation for to honor his departure from government after 50 years. I just came back from a trip in Africa today. As a matter of fact, I landed at 5 o'clock today after going to Kenya and Ivory Coast, where I had to meet with President Ruto of Kenya and President Ouattara in Cote d'Ivoire to continue to mark the celebration of this important milestone in the fight against an important disease that we are still struggling with as a continent. HIV/AIDS kills about 500,000 Africans a year. 500,000 Africans a year. And if we take our eyes off the ball, the threat that it once posed to our continent will return. I started, chiefs, became ladies and gentlemen and friends, to say that it is with great humility that when the White House called me 2 years ago and said, "The president has the intent to nominate you to serve as the ambassador at large for this position, it took a lot of courage to leave the job that I was doing in Africa, because if you all recall, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I was spearheading the fight against that pandemic in Africa with several head of states, where actually every month we'll come together to discuss the trends. It was headed by President Ramaphosa. I just didn't know that I had the courage to go back to the presidents of Africa and said to them, Excellencies, I'm leaving you in the middle of this struggle to go to America and join President Biden. So my wife and I took time off and went to Kenya and reflected. Actually took a safari in Kenya, reflected. And in the end, it's a small voice that whispered in my ear said, go, it is well. HIV, COVID will come to pass. HIV/AIDS is still a serious threat for your people. It's a calling. I say that because there's a saying that when opportunity occurs and they meet an unprepared mind, it is the most unfortunate thing that can happen. Today, I'm back from the continent to gather support because this year is crucial. Congress will be debating how to reauthorize that bill because they put at my disposition every year $7 billion and for 5 years. So the last 5 years just will elapse in October. So I think I will be devoting more than 80% of my time working on the Hill to get the $7 billion to Congress to reauthorize that. Colleagues, chiefs, the BLM finds itself at a critical juncture. We may be seated in the chief's palace here. It is my thesis that the BLM, if we don't take it seriously, face an existential threat. The BLM faces an existential threat because of what has happened over the last 6 years. What maintains the continuity of a community is the young people. And if the young people have all abandoned the village, no matter what we do, no matter the very elaborate program of action that I hear LECDA present to us, there will be no population for you to implement that project. It is a place for me at this point to call all of us to reflect as to what kind of a BLM do we want? What kind of a BLM do we want? Time is not on our side. If today, Mr. President, you were to release those resources that you are requesting, the first question any donor will ask will be, where is the population that you want these resources to be directed to? When we're preparing for this gathering, the president texted me and said, and Mr. Ambassador would also like to discuss how you can support us with part of the 500,000 euro that came from the award. I said to the president that I appreciated that request, and I said, well, the 500,000 had been spoken on. I gave it to a charity in Uganda to support vulnerable children. If you Google, you see the press statement from the organization. The State Department determined that it was based on merit, I could keep it. But I determined personally that I didn't do anything to deserve 500. The honor of being in Berlin with my wife and my family to be recognized with the highest award in global health was enough. Gave it away. So I told the president that that money has been spoken on. I say that to say that even if I said at that time that we'll make it available to you, the question will still be, where is the population that will be? Then I also told the president that raising money should not be the problem at all. Now, I said, let's start with what is the problem you want to solve? Let me know the problem you want to solve. And we don't need to, we have evolved. When LECDA of 20 years ago, when Professor Nkengasong and I, he was the president, I was the vice, and I see Pam over there. Pam was, I think, the treasurer or something, and Nkengasong was part of the BOT. We're struggling with raising $100 per person each time, and it usually came around 25,000 or 24,000, and we would debate that money, quarrel over it. I said, those days we've evolved. So all we need now is a good proposal, and I can easily turn to other donors, foundations, and say, well, this is a proposal that I'd like you to partner with us and support, and they will release the money directly. And you don't need to give it to us. You can tell them that that is a project you want to do. When you listed your projects, Mr. President, they're all sound, but I advise that we go back to the drawing board and think of some cardinal projects to rehabilitate our baseline. Cardinal projects to rehabilitate the baseline. Before the war, there were some cornerstone institutions in the BLM, the Seed of Wisdom College, the Mary Heart of Africa, etc., those kind of, a challenge you have is to get back to the baseline, where we were before. And then make it better, take advantage of that. There's no point pointing fingers as to who was the cause of that. What has happened has happened. If we truly want the BLM to come back, it should be a proposal that is truly written, a solid proposal, and I see a lot of talents in this room or outside this room that you can engage with McKinsey, Deloitte, and others to put together a strong proposal that when you meet with Gates or Melinda and others, I say, please help me do this. They see a proposal in front of them, a costed proposal, a reasonable proposal, with a logic model that says, if you give me 1 million, this will be the outcome, and whatever that. I can assure you it will be relatively easy to support. That is what I mean by taking a determination, a commitment today that the BLM will not be extinct. If we do not do that and attract the young people back in that community where we all came from, we will become history. 20 years from now, we will become history. The people who settled in the BLM came from somewhere. One day, some people will come from somewhere and settle in the BLM. And it will be history if we do not rehabilitate those structures. When I go around, you hear young people say, tell me what I must do in my career to be like you, which is very legitimate. My first answer to them is always, I don't know. I don't know how I can tell you how to become me, but this is what I know. I know that it has to do with resilience, it has to do with character, it has to do with modeling your risk. If you do not move forward, you will not go upward. If you stay put, you run into safety, but you don't move forward. But you should only do that if you are contributing to humanity. If you are not contributing to humanity, no matter how resilient you are not going to go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, chiefs, as I take my seat, let me recognize a few family members.
Message. I came here, Gaza Media, thinking that as a chief financial officer, I will use the opportunity to raise funds and some kind of, this is how we can get resources for LECDA. But he has given us a challenge that is more than raising funds, which is that we need to take the BLM where it was before, because the state of the BLM by itself is very, very troubling, and he has given us an assignment more than ever before.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Officer.
Thank you.
Yeah, of the speeches that I've made so far, really unite you, that you feel moved by what Ambassador or the President of LECDA US has said.
Well, the fact of laying the foundation before going on, I think it was a very impressive part of the speech. And I think if we do it that way, we're going to achieve whatever we want.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You make a lot of jokes when you were talking. How do you feel receiving people their palace of this magnitude?
It is the people's house. I'm relieved. I'm happy. What else can you have from the population? You can have everything. You invite everybody, nobody comes. But when you invite everybody, everybody comes. You are a lucky man. But this group of people who are here don't lack food to eat. They don't lack what to drink. Yes.
True, yeah?
Yes.
Ms. Kumba for having me. Most people call me Nicodemus Mofo, some call me Mofo, and the rest. Well, however you want to call me is fine. But the importance of children going to school in the BLM as a whole is critically important for me, and I think that each one of us who had some education up to secondary school should understand that we cannot have our future in the hands of ignorance. Ignorance is the greatest enemy in the world. Whether you know it or not, it will torture you the same way like somebody that doesn't know. So I'm thinking that we have to stand and make sure that our children go back to school in the BLM. If we do not see that, it means that we are really blind. But I believe even a person that doesn't have eyes to see and they have vision is better than those of us who have eyes to see and still refuse to see that our children need to go to school. It's a bad weapon to fight for political gains using our children. That is the future of Cameroon. That is the future of any community. That is the future of any nation. If we refuse to see that our children who are not going to school will be lagging behind tomorrow, and that will be a generational loss, then we are not educated at all.
Yeah. If a child was in Form 1 or Class 1 who was supposed to be in Class 7 has not attended school, what implication does that really hold for our future?
Of course, it's a great implication. I studied pedagogy when I studied in Germany, and I know that you cannot let children lag behind because they start feeling shy that they don't qualify for their level. And you get to a certain level, you just give up. If a child that is already 12 years old cannot read, something that a 6-year-old can read in the United States or somewhere else, they are going to shy away. They are not going to really push to go forward. And it will take a lot of resources and a lot of human resources to be able to bring them back online. And it will generally be tough.
Yeah, Mr. Mofo, thank you so much for your time and being a strong advocate for education. And I hope our audience will be listening to us that they should do all that they can to make sure that children go to school, irrespective of their political ideology. They should always keep children.
Mr. Kumba, I wish I could say this before I leave.
Yes.
Some people may be saying that it's not necessary for children to go to school, but they have no background. I was born around 1966 when the hospital came, and my mother had 10 children and ended up with 5 because of mortality rate at the time. And then also, growing in Fontaine, if there was no Citizen College, no grammar school, a lot of us who are doing well today in the world will be nowhere. Let's face facts and then think about what we are doing to our children.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mofo.
Thank you for having me,
yes.
Mr. Ernest Kumba.
Yeah. So to you, what do you think you as the president of the student can do to restore the hospital that was around the market square at Aya, so that people can begin to go there and get even some paracetamol?
Yes, thank you, Ernest. I know it's been a very difficult situation what the economy has gone through for the past 6 or 5 years during the war. The hospital that was first of all brought to the war as a result of the aid from his ambassador, the hospital is gone. And I think as of now, what we are trying to do, it just happened that I spoke to the front of the war today, and we're more interested on that, talking about our hospital. We're trying to see how the vehicle which was even bought for the hospital, which was used in transporting the patients from the different parts of the Fondo. He told me it was under the keeping. He directed me where the car was, and we want to start by trying to get that, to bring it back to the village. And as it was rightly said by an ambassador, we have to try to first bring the villagers back before looking for the intervention or looking for the way to help them. Because if you bring the vehicle back, when they will open the hospital back, when there's nobody to go to the hospital, it all means nothing. So for now, we're trying in the first place to bring the villagers back. That's what I was just talking with the phone today. After that, we shall see how to bring the hospital and all what was included back to the fund.
And if I may add something,
yes.
We have effectively started bringing the people back through the introduction of community schools, where the children of the community are already studying and their parents are coming back to assist them. This project is already ongoing in Lewo. We have 2 schools that are already ongoing in Lewo, and that is an initiative that is meant to start encouraging the young ones to come back, because from what Ambassador Nkengasong said, the key is to first bring the people, so that when you are implementing a project, there will be people there who can benefit from that project.
Yes, that brings me to one point. Gather Media covered a story, have a training seminar. I see a lot of collaboration, and LECDA also sponsor part of that seminar. Yes, we have the document at the Gaza from the Gaza reporting media.
We work with LECDA, got in contact with me and informed me, and the LECDA executive here in the US, they were really enthusiastic about the project, and we just sent in our own support for the project, and I think it was really 100% successful.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying that, with this kind of collaboration, bringing the children together is also very essential. But now, I want to ask you another question. That if they aspire to be like our ambassador, that we are celebrating his achievement today.
I think our brother, His Excellency Ambassador Nkengasong, has set the barrier for all youths in the BLM. I think it's an inspiration for all of our youth to be able to know that they can attain any height at any time. Insofar as they have the aspiration, they have the desire, the determination to reach their goal. You have to set a goal, and once you set that goal and you work towards that goal, you will get there. And this is all your determination. Dr. Ambassador Nkengasong has already shown us the way that any young person, from wherever you come, from a remote village as it may be, you can attain a height, insofar as you have that determination, the zeal, and the spirit to work hard. Ambassador Nkengasong is where he is, not because he is from a rich family, not because he has somebody who has helped him to be where he is, but because of his enthusiasm, his zeal, his determination, and his focus. So I encourage all the BLM youth to be able to benefit from what Dr. Nkengasong, Ambassador Nkengasong, has done, and know that if they put themselves together, they will get to whatever level that they want to be. And I'm very inspired, and I believe that my younger brothers are as well inspired, especially those who are in Cameroon. I know it's challenging in Cameroon, but I want to encourage them. They can still make it. It is never late. We want to see all of our BLM youth to be inspired and to be able to attain even a greater heights than Ambassador Nkengasong, to challenge him, and they too can get there.
And can I add to this by saying that mark you youths, mark you the BLM youths, Dr. Nkengasong was not born in America. He just migrated to America like all these other youths are coming. He just went to school, passed through Europe, and finally arrived America. He is like what we call first generation arrival, and he can be an ambassador. That tells you a story.
That anybody can get there.
Thank you guys so much. And I'm listening to the wife of Dr. John Nkengasong, our ambassador, spoke passionately how she was able to support the husband, keeping the family together while the husband traveled and do all the work and to where he is today. How do you think that is significant for women as you to support their husband and the family while they go ahead to do this kind of work as you are standing here with your husband?
Well, as for me, I really appreciate her hard work as a wonderful wife that she is. For our culture, a woman is like a housewife, and she is like the breadwinner of her family. And I really appreciate her hard work for supporting her husband to do what he is doing. And I really ask that women from our community should be able to support their husband to go ahead to support the community, you know? Like my husband and I, we have LECDA International, which I am like the primary executive manager of the LECDA International. I really go ahead to support him 100% to help our community. So it's not easy.
Yes, okay, yeah, let me not cut you short. We have covered some of the activity of LECDA International for a while, and they have donated money to community organizations like the Kudu. And I think even this year they are still donating a lot of money to help the BLM people so that they can go to many heads of Africa and maybe get medical treatment for free. So how do you feel with that kind of volunteerism to the less privileged in our village?
Well, I'm very happy because I'm a daughter from the soil. I know how difficult it is for someone to be sick and go to the hospital, and the first thing the doctor is going to ask you is to pay money. And I know that a lot of people died without having treatment. And with the support that I and my husband we are given, I know it will go a long way.
Thank you both so much for your continuous service to the village of the BLM. And